Today, I would like to welcome Hugh to the podcast, Hugh Massie. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you, Catherine.
I'm just going to get right to it, and I would love for you to start talking about what are you up to right now?
So today I run a business called DNA Behavior. We are a behavior data analytics business, and our specialty is understanding not only how people work and play in terms of their talents, but also their financial behaviors. And so we've done a lot. We've built technology systems to distill that down for every human. Into 4,000 insights, and we work with corporations of all sizes and types to provide behavioral information that hopefully improves decision making, relationships, performance, and I think importantly to self-empower individuals as well to learn more about themselves to do better in their own lives.
That is, I mean, that is a rabbit hole I love going down is, how people think and why they do things
Yeah.
and, kind of what fuels them and things like that. So, just to give a little more perspective, who might be an ideal client for you?
So an ideal client would be really any organization with, say, more than 100 people in it and they're wanting to grow, and they see building a people-centric culture as important.
All right. So, and that could be as long as revenue wise, that's any size, as long as they have like about 100 people, because that's when it's most effective.
That's when I think it starts. I mean, we've worked with smaller firms in that, but I think that's when it starts to. And when I say 100 people, that could also include the clients and their ecosystems that they work with. So we do a lot of work with the financial services firms. There might be, 10 people in the firm, but they've got hundreds of clients, and that is also part of that 100. Or more. But I think an organization with 100 employees, we can start to do more to help them with engagement, see where the blockages are, where the opportunities are, where could people be shuffled around to work in an area that they might be better at.
Okay.
That type of thing. So the scale I think is better for our at that size, is better for our systems.
The end game for your client, for example, would be, how do I get my people to work more efficiently? Do I have them in the right seats? Do they have some sort of personal barrier that is kind of keeping them from, doing some particular task? Is that along the lines?
That is along the lines. That's the functional side of it. I think the other part, Catherine, is that we're very passionate about is the employee engagement. So, and in particularly, what's the connection level at work? How does a lower level person connect with their leaders better?
Oh, nice.
So improve communication, engagement, and a big word is psychological safety in the workplace. Because when we know those things are strong internally, they will become stronger with the clients as well. And so
yeah.
it's ensuring that spills over to the client service, because they're who pay the bills at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's about engagement, but also getting people to work in their productive roles, where they can be most productive. So all these things go hand in hand together.
So when you come into a company, for example, do you start with like a surveys and analysis and things like that? And I'm going to guess there's probably a little bit of therapy involved in there somewhere.
So when we come into an organization, we want to start with the CEO. That's
nice.
important, because if he or she is not prepared to build that people-centric culture by being open about themselves and going through our process themselves, then nothing's going to really happen. So, and the CEO is the person at the end of the day that influences the direction of the organization.
Correct.
And particularly sets the culture. So that's where it starts. But we do have systems, like we have a technology system for understanding how everybody ticks, and that can be deployed by people completing a behavioral assessment that takes 10 minutes to do on average. That's one way. And the other way is we've built now an AI-driven digital scan process.
Oh, how exciting.
Where we can, without everybody having to complete the assessment up front, we can still digitally scan every person in the business and provide an overall heat map, if you want to call it that, of every person there, and help the CEO and the leadership team work out, okay, where do we go next?
Oh, that is utterly fascinating. Because in my mind, and this is very simplistic, so I don't mean to insult your program, but it reminds me a lot, and I'm only going to refer to this because I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, is like if you do a strengths finder test, for example, it's a rapid fire, answer the question, and then they'll come out with what your strengths
So we
are.
have our assessment that people have to actively complete that takes on average 10 minutes would be a competitor to Strengths Finder.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and we're telling people what their strengths are, what their struggles are. But the difference is that we also address how people deal with money, because we think that financial behavior is a big issue as far as decision making is concerned. And a
That part of it
driver
really intrigues me.
and a driver of people's motivations.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but what we built was a system where, with the digital scan using AI, where people don't have to go and complete the assessment up front. We can do it with a pretty high accuracy level without any active participation, which enables us to start a conversation with the CEO to say, okay, you guys are here now. This is where you want to get to. This is your mix of people. And we might highlight some issues or opportunities.
Right.
And then the more, what I call structured work can start to take place step by step and focus on the areas where there's a greater need. We might see that the clients aren't happy because the customer support's bad. Well, hey presto, go and look at the people who are in the customer support team. You can see they're a bunch of bulldogs, and they're upsetting the clients. Okay, what changes are you going to make? Right, and then that comes back to, okay, they're acting like bulldogs, either because they've the wrong style, or they're disengaged with their manager.
Right.
Right. So what we're able to do is pinpoint that really quickly with the digital scan process, and I think that's the advantage, is to cut to the chase quickly, as opposed to taking a whole 3 months to get everybody to do their profiles, and then you've got to, manage and administer that, which is important. Ultimately, it gets done, but it can be clunky to get it done.
I think that's quite brilliant because, and I love that you use the term like it's a bit of a heat mapping, because just as a comparison, like for example, your whole leg is in a lot of pain, but then you find out it's actually more of a tiny spot in your knee that's the true problem. And this is essentially, you might, the company's in chaos, but if we just really look at this, there's like one person that is actually kind of keeping everything a little off balance. And to have that sort of information as a CEO would be just hugely, hugely helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a way of getting a very quick MRI scan on the business, and then when you want to go in and potentially have to make a change or sort out an area, that's where you then would want everybody to complete the full scale behavioral assessment and go through all of that then, and whether it's team building's required or outright a decision needs to be made about people or what to do. It would get then done at a higher level of accuracy. You want to be sure before you make key decisions, but I think the heat mapping approach gives you a place to start. It improves the upfront conversations, and the guesswork is reduced, and that's the whole purpose.
Exactly. And having been a CEO, I would have greatly appreciated stuff like that, because sometimes you can't figure it out. I mean, people are just really good at masking, or they're really good at, just making things work with what they have, that you can't really pinpoint a problem.
This is the big issue out there, is that, I think that there's things you can see above the surface about any person, but it's what's going on below the surface. And some people are really good at masking it. And even if you can see things going on, putting measurement to it is what brings the visibility to the issues.
Right. And I love that you do that whole section on money too, because, we all have issues with money one way or the other. So the fact that you're basically attacking that, I think is brilliant.
But also, I think what we're trying to bring out is that a CEO's financial behavior style is playing a role in the decision
Oh,
making
absolutely.
in the company. It's playing a role. It's affecting the culture, and so that needs to be understood. And the leaders that have a stronger financial behavior style for leadership of a company, you can see that the profits are higher in their organization compared to their competitors. So we've done a lot of business tracking of that.
Oh, I bet. And I guess my next question would be, would you then be able to detect, say, for example, if an employee, for example, is not driven by money? Because there are people out there that, it's like
Yeah.
their purpose or whatever, but they're not, you could just say, I'll give you a bonus if you work harder. And they're like, well, I don't care.
Yeah, money is a factor for everybody, but I think that I would say that no one's disinterested in the money part, but there will be some that will value time off or not having to work all night, flexibility or 6 weeks annual leave rather than 3, that type of thing might be just as important.
Right.
The flexibility of how they come to work or whether they have to come to the
Yes.
office every day, and in the end, all those things are financial considerations
Mm-hmm.
for people, and so that's got to be taken into account. But you can see that with people what they really value the most
Right.
by understanding them as a human.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up that whole, coming into the office thing too, because since we're on this big swing of do we go back, do we not go back? Because a lot of people are they also I'll even give you more money if you come into the office and you're like that's not what I want. I want to work from home. And the motivations are different, and it would be really interesting to see, what is it that motivates people from a CEO standpoint to just understand how your team is operating, let alone to your point, which is probably the greatest point of how the CEO thinks about money too.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, and that then affects his or her behavior with the C-suite,
Yes.
and then all the way down through the business.
That's brilliant. Um, you probably just didn't just wake up one day and decide that you were going to do this. So, what in your career led up to getting into this field that was just so fascinating for you?
Well, my early part of my career, first 10 years or so, was being a CPA, believe it or not,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, but I think on the side I was an entrepreneur in the sense that I was fiddling around with deals, making investments. I had to help run a family business as well. It's sort of my nighttime job and daytime job. We had management, but an administrative. So I was always interested in business, and I was fascinated by money, what money was from a very
Mm-hmm.
young age. I don't think it was just, as I say to people, it wasn't just about having the most money. It was more about the power of money, what people did with it, how they
Mm-hmm.
behaved with it. It was always going on when I was younger, and uh, so I suppose becoming an accountant in those days in the early 1980s or mid 1980s was really what you did when after you've been at an all boys boarding school
Right.
and a pretty traditional upbringing. Okay,
Yeah, that's a very traditional career.
go and become an accountant. So I did accountancy and economics, became a CPA, and then when I left, decided to leave that world and be more of an entrepreneur. I set up a family office, financial services business in Australia. But what I started to reflect on my life purpose, and people asking me questions, what are you passionate about? I wanted to help people all over the world become financially
Oh,
self-empowered.
I love that.
That just sprung out. And I'd already been working on how do you provide people with a hyper personalized experience. And I started to figure out the convergence of all of this. Helping people become self empowered was not about teaching them what the stock market is
Mm-hmm.
or a bond is. And it's about teaching them about themselves. But on the other side, if I know more about the person, I can provide a hyper personalized experience. And within the center of all of that, money is a huge issue for every person.
Yep.
Everyone's thinking about it day and night, literally. Money doesn't sleep energetically. And it's what causes stress for people.
Absolutely.
So when I pieced all that together, I realized the answer lies in human behavior. and I went back to my boyhood dreams, which is, I think, sort of partly what you were wanting me to
Yeah,
get to.
that is my next question.
I always wanted to have a global business.
What? As a kid?
Yeah, and I was playing,
God, I love that.
I used to play with my Lego and design it all out and, whatnot. But I didn't know what that was or would be. It's only
Yeah.
when I came back to reflecting on, okay, I've got to this fork in the road. I've got this wealth management business. It's doing okay. And I'm still young,
Yeah.
but I've got these ideas about human behavior, and I know that I am meant to go and build something globally. And I decided then that would not happen in wealth management. It needed to happen in having a human behavior business backed by technology.
Oh my
And that's
gosh.
what my life path needed to be. And once I figured that out and sort of said that's what I'm going to do, people showed up that were able to help me, lead me on a path. That's how I came from Australia to America. And, here am I talking to you today, Catherine, right? That's 20 years
Yeah.
later. That's really how it all came together.
I have to go back to this global domination as a kid.
I
What?
wouldn't say global domination, but I wanted a global business. Maybe that means domination, but yeah.
I'm wondering what was there someone in your life that kind of directed you that way, or was there and the reason I said global domination because I mean it's like did you watch like a lot of James Bond growing up and there was always like that the guy who wanted to take over the world sort of thing, or what was kind of your motivation to say, I just want to be having this global company because that is so big. That's such a big picture vision.
Um, there wasn't any particular person. There wasn't a role model. My father passed away when I was one. My mum's still pregnant with my brother. It was just there.
Oh my God,
That
I
was
love
just
that so much.
part of how I came into the world. As people have said, you came into the world as a force to be reckoned with. And,
God.
although it took a long time, I think, for me to figure out who I was and to build my confidence. And that was partly, I think, the sort of the start in life I had. But, you know, that's where it came from. It wasn't someone saying, well, Hugh, that's what you should do and that's what you're supposed to do as a business person.
So you kind of dropped in, this all kind of was pieced together literally with Legos. So was that the toy of choice as you were growing up?
Yeah, yeah. Loved Lego, and it was all sort of a way for me to, I suppose, sit on the carpet in the playroom we had and play, create, think, and put action in a way to what was going on in my head.
I loved Legos growing up too, so I had nothing to add to that. I think they're amazing, and you do create worlds with those. I mean, so I could definitely see that link of like, no, wait, click, click, and the next thing you know, you got this whole world that you're building, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's what it was.
One brick at a time. Have you written a book about this sort of process that you do? Not necessarily instead of hiring you, but more of a here's the kind of the research behind it, or here's a little at home version that you can do if you read the book. Have you done
Yeah,
that?
so there's a couple of books. There's one called Financial DNA, which is really around your financial behavior.
Love
There's
it.
one called Leadership Behavior DNA, which is around your leadership behaviors. There's quite a lot of what I call ebooks and white papers that are all sitting in our website at dnabehavior.com,
Perfect.
and a mass of blogs and other materials that can be downloaded that will tell you how we got to this place, the
I love it.
science behind it. So it's pretty robust. There are other books in the pipeline, like, as you know, books take quite a while to
Yeah.
write, and then they got to get rewritten and all that type of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of materials there that sort of bring out the pathway to all of this.
And just so my listeners are aware, I will have your website in the notes to the podcast so they can check all of this out. I know what
Yeah,
I'll be doing later because, like I said, I love going down these rabbit holes of thinking how, learning how people think and things like that. And that's a little bit of my marketing background still popping up because, it's essentially, I love the idea of what motivates people, what behaviors lead them to buy things, or how could you market something to get them to, notice and take interest in things like that. So yeah, the psychology of all of that is just so fascinating. And this is next level. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna learn some things along the way too. So that's excellent. That's so excellent. I do have to ask you now because you are, doing some amazing things, but there has got to be some time where you're just like, I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to do something that's fun and it's just for me and has no responsibility. So what do you do in your spare time that you thoroughly enjoy?
So I'm a person that enjoys sports, particularly ball sports. So I play a lot of golf. Um, the only hindrance is the weather at
Yes,
times. Even
yes.
though I'm in Atlanta now, and it's warm enough most of the year, but there has been this year it's not been warm enough. But so golf, tennis, play a
Nice.
lot of, and then I'm really physical sort of fitness stuff. So I have a range of programs, from the bike to strength, Pilates. So
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
picking out moments of the day and the week when I do all of those things. And then the sort of thing that's not as obvious that I love is a game called cricket, which
Oh
is sport really played by Commonwealth countries.
yeah.
I was a kid mad about it, and really that's the passion. So if I can ever watch cricket games, um, I do. So it has to be in Atlanta. A lot of it's on the TV. Although when my
Yeah.
youngest son was playing cricket here in Atlanta, I go to obviously the fields, but and
I was
play
wondering if
myself.
anybody
But
played here, so
oh,
that's good
there's
to know.
more of it than you think.
Really? Oh, that's good
Yeah,
to know because it's kind of a, like I said, it's just something we don't normally get exposed to. So it's good that it's being played because there was a time when nobody really played soccer here, which was crazy because it was like this world sport, and now it's finally getting some traction, which is
yeah,
so
which is
exciting, I
good.
think.
And cricket, I think, is just it's still a long way behind soccer as far as the
Yeah.
United States is concerned, but there's more of it than you realize.
Oh, that's great. Well, fingers crossed that'll catch on a little more because we need more sports than just football and baseball and
I
things
think
like
so.
that.
They're a bit dry as far as I'm concerned.
Right, right. Um, well, let me ask you this. What is it about, golfing? We'll use that for example, since you mentioned that first. What is it about golfing that really helps you unplug?
Well, there is no way that you can play golf well if you're thinking about something else. And if your energy is not calm enough, you can't do it. Like if you're worked up from a business issue, family
Right,
issue, your energy is out of sync for whatever reason, then you're not going to be able to play golf
right.
properly because the swing is just too fine tuned and requires a lot of coordination, if you want to call it that,
Little
to
finesse, if you will.
yeah
Yeah,
to do it properly. So in a way, to play golf, you've got to be able to put yourself in another zone, and then at the same time as well, you want to be sociable with the other people you're playing with. You can't just
true.
be about you. I mean, there obviously are a good number of selfish people, but to me, it's about having engagement with others out there on the course, but being in control enough of myself to, when the moment comes to hit the ball or putt the ball, to be able to do it properly.
Yeah. All of those things are perfect because not only are you outside, because I think that is a
Yeah,
great way to kind of unplug too, because you sit at your desk and, surrounded by four walls, get out in nature because nature is the best way to just kind of re-engage. There's a walk. A walk is always a good thing to do. And then, like you said, engaging with people. So that's like
yeah, and I
three
do a
things.
lot of walking. Some meetings walking, but sometimes just walking by myself. Take my two dogs out with me,
Perfect.
and I find them being outside in nature is one of those ways in which I sort out problems or issues. I carry my notepad in my pocket so I can write down what the thought is. So, I think that exercise of varying sorts is important, but it can be actually productive time.
Yeah. And
When,
Hugh, you're a very smart person that knows about behavior. So I'm hoping that everybody listening will take that into consideration that if, you need that break, just at least just get outside for a little bit.
yep, absolutely.
Awesome. It was so great to have you on the podcast. I mean, I could probably talk to you like for another hour. But then everybody will get bored because, well, like I said, we'll be going down these rabbit holes. I'll be asking you all these questions about behavior. But instead, I'm going to go to your website, which again, I will include on the notes, and then people can get access to your books and your white papers and all your information. But I think what you're doing is absolutely fascinating. And I am so excited that you were able to make some time for us today.
Perfect, Catherine. I really enjoyed it.